We have everything we need.
Hey, I got everything you asked for to rebuild the lightsaber. I got a glue stick, we got batteries.
Hello, and welcome again to the Balance Podcast. I'm Micah.
And I'm Kris.
And we are here to discuss the Rise of Skywalker, as we promised. We left off on the previous episode 3 years ago on The Last Jedi. So what better way to kick off our new podcast with the final addition to the sequel trilogy of the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, and it feels weird talking about it again. I kind of already mentioned it in our little preview to coming back to doing this, but we had mentioned we're never going to do this again. We're not going to talk about the movie anymore, but 3 years later, we stopped doing it. Now we're going to kind of return to it and see like how the movie has aged for us. What about you? How do you feel about it at this point?
So upon my rewatch, I don't hate it. I love the Star Wars universe, so anything that happens in it with all of its flaws, I still enjoy, but I definitely do have a lot of criticisms of it. Absolutely. I think it just felt rushed. Like straight out the gate, the opening crawl just starts with the dead speak. The rebellion or the resistance received a transmission from Emperor Palpatine. He's returned, right? They just throw that at you right away. Like we don't see the transmission, and it just felt like JJ straight away was trying to reverse things that Rian Johnson did. Tried to really pack it into, especially like the first quarter of the film. It's really fast paced. I think within the first 15 minutes or so, we're introduced to Palpatine already.
Yeah, I
Visually.
agree. Yeah, for sure. Like visually, it's funny you use that word because that's like the returning to it and trying to like watch the film again. It's visually stunning. Like The Last Jedi and I think The Rise of Skywalker both have that in common. Mm-hmm. They're both beautiful films. But yeah, I agree. It does feel rushed. A lot happens in that first part of the film, and it feels like I want to know what happened beforehand. Before we just jumped in.
For sure. And hindsight's 2020, and I think the way Disney went about making these films, it doesn't seem like they coordinated with one another or had a protocol for story continuity, right? So JJ wrote The Force Awakens and then treatments for episodes 8 and 9, but Disney gave whatever director, in this case Rian Johnson, creative freedom to just do whatever story he wanted. At least that's what it seems like, and that's from what I understand. And that's fine to put your own spin on Star Wars. I'm open for new interpretations, but the story has to have some continuity, But like I said, hindsight is 2020, and I think the introduction of Palpatine would have served better in The Force Awakens. And that been an overarching theme.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think we talked about this earlier, and you had mentioned something like it would have been nice if that transmission would have existed somewhere in the universe of that first movie. Mm-hmm. So we just had like a building tension. I think that would have been great. I think it would have, would have tied in the original franchise in a way that's way more insidious and way more interesting and palatable for the older fans too.
I saw you sneak that in there. These are Freudian slips. Insidious. You said palpable. Palpatine, dude. I see what you're doing there. You planned this. No, but
100% not intentional, but
I know it wasn't forced.
Wow.
But really, yeah, the introduction of Palpatine, like the transmission, I would have loved to have seen the transmission. I would have loved to have seen our characters. And by the way, I love the characters of the sequel trilogy. I really do. I love Poe. I love Rey. I love Finn. I think they're all great. I think
I do
they
too.
mesh really
Agreed.
well with Star Wars, and I think they are Star Wars. But that being said, I would have loved to have seen them react to that transmission from Palpatine. That would have been a really dramatic moment and just shocking. And it would have been a nice callback and fan service. And let's be real, a sequel trilogy, when you bring these characters back, it is a fan service, at least to some degree. You know?
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit when not just a little bit. We talked about that and argued about it quite a bit in our last Jedi episode. Last Jedi? Yeah. The last Jedi episode, we talked about that and we debated about it and how, like, you know, the degree to which they focused on service to the fans of the franchise versus service to their children.
Yeah.
And they definitely, you know, Rian Johnson definitely did not care about catering to the fans of Star Wars. And we talked about it since. I love him as a director. He's a good writer. He's a good storyteller. He just didn't give a shit about the original concept of Star Wars, which obviously in this next film we're talking about, in The Rise of Skywalker, there's definitely some apologies written into the storyline.
Yeah. Right. Like we were saying, just right off the bat.
Right.
You know, when Kylo lands on Exegol to the Sith Temple, like, I felt, as I was watching that, I thought this would be a perfect scene for maybe the second or third act of the third film, which, I mean, it was the third film, but had Palpatine been introduced in the episode 7, him entering that temple felt like it felt like the trilogy should have been culminating to that moment. Like, dude, the Emperor, when we finally see the Emperor revealed, you know?
What you're seeing him doing, it's so intense and great and exciting. It's like, what was he doing before that moment that led to that?
Yeah.
I want to see that movie. Why can't I see that?
For sure.
It for sure looked like the moment in a movie where, like, you're about to get to the climax, but no, like, we're in the beginning of a film. And that in of itself is odd for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of off-putting. That being said, I mean, so one thing that really threw me off too, when they showed the Emperor, first of all, he looks like the Emperor because it's the actor Ian McDiarmid, right?
Sure.
But he also just looked like him in goth makeup, just like the regular actor. He didn't look like, he looked like Palpatine because it is him, but he didn't look like Palpatine. Am I making sense? It was weird. He had, like, just dark lipstick on and pale makeup. It was like, okay.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I'll be honest. In the viewings I've had of the film, none of that bothered me, and it never hit my head. But you're not the only one I've heard it from.
Yeah.
There was a definite, like, Palpatine zombie vibe that was, like, I don't know if it was necessary, but I was fine with it.
Yeah.
So, like, I'd have to listen to you speak to that because I'm curious, like, what specific characteristics within, because I know he was like on that, like, mechanical kind of, like, arm thing,
which I thought was pretty cool.
I thought it was a cool kind of almost gave me like Pinhead, like, horror movie vibes,
right?
Which is kind of fun for me. Like, it's just like the vibe of it and, like, the aesthetic of it was super creepy and fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what threw me off again is just, I guess, context, right? Because it's like, okay, why does he look different? And then they later introduce, like, maybe he's a clone, right? And they don't even fully confirm it. It's just kind of mentioned in passing, like, oh, dark, what does he say? Dominic from Lord of the Rings, that actor, says, oh, like, dark magic, the Force, or secrets only the Sith knew, you know, cloning.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they bring that up, and it's like, okay, so is that body a clone, and that's why it looks different? Or, but his fingers are all fucked up, so it's like, okay, he also looks like he survived that fall? I don't know.
Yeah. The fact that he played it the way he did, in terms of basically claiming to survive death with the dark side, with the power of the dark side, made it seem like, to me, he wasn't a clone, that he had somehow put himself back together in, I don't know, some inconceivable, disgusting way. But I mean, if we're being honest, right? Like, what do you think Palpatine was, like, the plan? Was that where we were in The Force Awakens? Is that where J.J. Abrams was going?
It doesn't feel like it at all. It feels like a last-minute rushed fan service and plot change to make up for the changes Rian Johnson made into J.J.'s original idea, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think that was it. I think Snoke was likely supposed to be someone else, which I would have preferred, that he was his own evil villain, Force-sensitive Sith or whatever, you know?
Yeah. I think I agree. Like, I would have liked to see, again, like now we're going back to Last Jedi, but like there's so much story we didn't get that was just kind of thrown away. Like, we were excited to see the backstory of like who this crazy looking Snoke character is. Like, honestly, props and shout out to whoever designed that character, because I thought he was pretty fucking badass.
Yeah,
I thought he was cool. I wanted to see, like, it was creepy, it was kind of horror, and I wanted to see what was going on with him. And we didn't get to, or at least now, I don't know, if you want to believe this was the plan, we have now, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was, and it's weird, like the whole clone vibe of him. He looks the way he looks, but like, why would you need so many of him?
Yeah, like the Emperor literally has like this container with like Snoke clones.
Right. To me, it looked like he was using these clones as like, I don't know, like moms do with snow globes in Christmas time. Like, I don't. Why are they decorating his dark palace?
Right. It was, or like a horror movie, you know, when you see like body parts in jars that like the murderer's collecting, you know.
Yeah.
But also, why are the clones like fucked up? Why does Snoke look the way he does? Like, why is he all scarred up?
Yeah, I can't explain it. There's obviously like a context to like some sort of distortion between your appearance and fully giving yourself over to the dark side that they've played with in Star Wars since the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. From Darth Vader, they did it a little bit with Kylo Ren for sure. All over the place, they've really messed with it. It's just kind of like a weird thing, but it's something that I feel like maybe they were going to go further with Snoke, and they just didn't.
Yeah,
they just dropped it.
Yeah, and we'll see that a lot throughout all of Rise of Skywalker. A lot of plot points that JJ brought up that Rian Johnson kind of tore down, and then JJ tried to resurrect again. You know,
right?
Let's kind of go back a little bit. The name in general, the Rise of Skywalker, do you remember when that was revealed at the Star Wars convention?
I'll be honest, I don't.
I remember I watched it live, the Star Wars celebration, right? With the trailer reveal and the title reveal. And when they showed that the title was The Rise of Skywalker, felt like it was really misleading, you know? I mean, Luke died, and I think that was pretty disappointing for a lot of people, especially the way he died. He died of exhaustion, but I'm just being silly. I mean, I thought that scene was pretty cool, what he did. But it was disappointing that he did die and he wouldn't be in the next film. And so when we see The Rise of Skywalker, it's like, holy crap, is JJ going to bring him back in some capacity? Which I would have really liked to have seen, to be honest.
Right.
I think they could have pulled it off. But anyways, I just felt like that was kind of misleading and kind of a cheap move to title it that.
So on the last watch that I had, I totally understand that point of view. On the last watch I had, though, to be honest, like there was kind of like a beautiful moment where I was thinking, like, what is the Rise of Skywalker? Like, which part was it? Was it that we got to see, and obviously spoiler alerts here all around for Rise of Skywalker as we go through this, was it that we got to see him again? Was it that we got to see his Force ghost? So there's a Rise of Skywalker to a point. Was it that Leia passed away at some point during the film? So there was the rise of her sort of Force ghost back to give herself back into the Force. Mm-hmm. Was it hers? Was it the rise of Skywalker in terms of, Ben coming back to the, I don't know if I want to call it away from the, like, obviously away from the dark side, right? Because there was a death of Kylo Ren. We'll get more into that down the road, but there's a sort of Rise of Skywalker you could give to him because he's a part of that bloodline, and him coming back from that dark side. But then there's also, down the road, we'll talk about this more and explain this. There's a context you can give the Rise of Skywalker title to Rey as well. So
yeah, it could go a lot of ways. I think when I watched it the first time, I saw it in terms of Ben Solo. Because, technically, he's as much a Skywalker as a Solo. That's how I interpreted it. But then, anyways, okay. Like you said, we'll get into the end, But Princess Leia in this movie, what JJ did since Carrie Fisher passed away, I think he did a brilliant job of being able to incorporate Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, her character, into this film by using this old footage to pay tribute to her and still make her an integral role in the movie. I thought they did that really well. I was impressed. You know, instead of using CGI or anything like that to manipulate the way she looked.
Sure.
I mean, they did to some degrees, right, with the setting and some lighting, but it was her. And I think they did a really good job of blending the dialogue into the new movie to pay tribute to her so that she's still a pivotal role in the movie.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'll admit some of the scenes were stronger than others, right? Like some of them kind of felt like some of them were more obvious that she had been inserted into scenes than others. Some of them were very emotionally impacting. You know, there were some awkward times with her, but like the training scenes were cool. I love that they brought that back. So got to see, Leia as more of a Jedi, as more of a master, or at least someone that was a mentor to Rey, that was teaching her more about the Force, more about herself, that got her more powerful and in touch with the Force, you know? I really enjoyed that they did that and they gave that to Leia. I thought that was beautiful. There was a lot of moments where they inserted Leia that I thought were really great, but like the training sequence was really great. I honestly wish the training sequence would have existed prior to the third film, considering, you know, I mean, it's like that's something that probably should have existed in, I don't know, in The Last Jedi, or maybe even in The Force Awakens. But it was still great to see.
Yeah. I think in The Last Jedi, I don't know the timeline of when Carrie Fisher passed away versus the filming of it and why they chose to do what they wanted to do, but they chose to show Leia as Force sensitive or really strong with the Force by surviving outer space, right, when she was blasted. I think a better way probably would have been, if you remember when they're on Crate and they're kind of stuck in that cave, and there's like all those rocks covering it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
it would have been kind of cool to see Leia like lift those and like help everyone escape, but you know, I don't know the timeline of her passing, but that would have been cool to see. What I do love in these films is every time they pass Vader's helmet, they play the Imperial March, but it's a very ominous, slow Imperial March, just faint, just hints, you know, that blend in with the rest of the score of the movie, but it really takes you back. It feels really good. You know, you see that and you do get that nostalgia, like seeing that helmet, and it's almost like you feel that Force Ghost, or you feel that spirit of Vader come back a little bit. That Imperial March is so iconic, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's
definitely. I remember you mentioning that before, and it's like the music wise, which is funny because I love music, but it's not something I ever focused on.
Yeah.
So it's not something not that I didn't notice it happens. I definitely did, but I didn't notice it happens every time the helmet is in frame. Like that's not something I necessarily zoned in on, but it's a really cool nugget to kind of realize. That's cool.
Yeah, it gives you like little goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you feel about when they introduced, you know, the new cast, Rey, Poe, Finn, all together when they landed back on the planet after the light speed skipping, when they escaped the First Order, which I thought the light speed skipping was really cool. I really liked the idea, but it also seemed like plans for the future Falcon ride. I was like, oh, this seems like a ride, you know, how could they not implement that? I don't know, but I liked it overall. How did you feel about the argument between Rey and Poe and just their dynamic?
I thought it was fine. I thought it made sense. It was a good, kind of like aggression between two of our new main cast members. So, I mean, they both had their points. I felt like Poe was totally correct. Like, they could have had her help, right? And she was overly aggressive about what they went through, even though Poe had just saved their ass. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, what are they going to do? Like, Rey does need to train. She does need to get stronger, and she does need to understand more about her place in the Force if they're to survive the whole ordeal. So
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. I liked the character development a lot.
Yeah, I think when I first saw it, it was a little awkward to me, or it just seemed misplaced because it happened kind of suddenly. It's like, oh, you guys are fighting, almost like a couple. They kind of were fighting, and but then, like you said, it does make sense. It's like you are the strongest person that we have. We're going against Kylo Ren, who's a dark side of the Force user,
Right.
and we're not. They're not Force sensitive. Well, maybe one of them. So they do need her. So I get it. At the end of the day, I did get it, and it was fine. But I think just at first, it was a little jarring. It was like, oh, what are they arguing about?
Yeah, and honestly, in the moment, I may have felt a little that way too. I've had a couple watches over the past few months that have probably influenced my opinion of the scene in a different way. That I'm like now expecting it and almost enjoying it. Mm-hmm. In the banter of like the aggression between the two doesn't feel too dissimilar between Han Solo and Leia. So,
yeah, I see that for sure.
And there's a lot of scenes within this particular film, and I'm not complaining about this at all, because I feel like maybe there's a degree to that was missing in The Last Jedi for me. For Poe was a lot closer to like that character of taking over for Han Solo in this film.
Right.
Like there was a lot of scenes that kind of reminded me of that in a really positive kind of like just really fan service kind of way. Like I didn't think it was too much. I thought it was within Poe's original character that we met him as in the first film.
I feel like Rian Johnson tried to establish a romantic relationship, quite obviously, between Rose and Finn.
Oh, definitely.
And then one between Poe and Rey.
Also,
like at the end of The Last Jedi, when Poe introduces himself to Rey, and Rey introduces herself, and he says, "I know." It's like a harken back to when Han Solo responds to "I love you" from Leia.
Yeah, totally.
But JJ kind of just squashed that straight away when the first scene between Rose and Finn, they have some interaction, and then Finn touches her on the shoulder, like a very friendly touch, like
sure,
almost like a pat on the back, like "Hey, friend," So he kind of squashed that, and it's seen throughout the Rise of Skywalker, little retcons like that.
Yeah, and I don't love everything in the Rise of Skywalker, but honestly, I do enjoy that decision. Like, I like the change in dynamics between those relationships. I think they're more interesting in the Rise of Skywalker, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I wish going back to Palpatine, I wish they would have spent more time, again, discussing and showing us how he is still alive, what the cloning is. Is his body a clone? Is it just his spirit? Does his spirit inhabit Snoke? like what is all of it? And the only clue that we have to it, or the only mention really, is when the character Beaumont, played by Dominic Monaghan, after he hears the news that Palpatine has returned, he says, "Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew." It's like, that sounds really cool. I want to hear more about that. Dark science, cloning, like I want to see that. I want to see that happen.
For sure.
And we don't really see it happen. We just see the end result,
Definitely.
It's just kind of thrown into the conversation. But also, secrets only the Sith knew. Didn't those aliens, I think they were called the Kaminoan, in Attack of the Clones? They knew how to, they created the clone army, right?
That's fair, yeah, definitely.
So maybe secrets only the Sith knew. I guess maybe bringing a spirit back. That's what they're referring to.
Yeah, I guess. The clone thing, obviously Palpatine was using, right? But I never had any inclination that he was a clone in of himself, though. Why would you make a clone as fucked up as he was?
Yeah, it's really strange.
I
don't get it.
It's bizarre, Yeah. He's hanging on like a claw machine, just like falling apart.
I do like that, dude. There is like a horror aspect to it,
It's creepy.
Like you were saying, whatever you referred to it, yeah. Also, what we see is Rey bring out Luke's books that she took from in The Last Jedi from that tree library on Octu.
Right, those page-turning books.
Yeah. And she talks about how Luke was in search for Exegol, trying to look for that.
Right.
How badass would that have been to see? Maybe not even in this trilogy. Maybe they could do a series on its own. They'd have to have Luke be played by someone else, like, what's his name?
Sebastian Stan?
Yeah. How cool would that story be, you know? Like,
I think it
his
would.
search for Exegol.
I mean, like, we're kind of doing a sidebar right now away from the movie, but there's some real traction for it to happen. Yeah. And from what I've read, if Mark Hamill signs off on it, it seems like it's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm all for it if they can execute it well, you know?
Yeah. He's a good actor, and he looks a lot like him if you look at the artwork that Boss Logic did.
Yeah, for sure. And not passable enough to where I could enjoy the movie.
100%. I agree.
How did you feel about the Knights of Ren? How disappointing were the Knights of Ren in this film? In all the films, actually. In all three, how disappointing were the Knights of Ren?
I can't say they were the most disappointing here because at least we got them.
We did, but I feel like they were always in, like, scene transitions and just in passing. The first time we actually see the Knights of Ren, besides Rey's Force vision in The Force Awakens, is just them watching Kylo get his helmet repaired. Yeah. They're just all standing around watching it, and it's just like, that's a weird introduction to those characters.
Right. There was the planet where they went looking for the directions for, they were looking for the Wayfinder. The Sith Wayfinder, right? And they needed to find evidence of where Luke was searching, and they went to that planet where they were having that whole huge that celebration, like the cultural celebration amongst all the aliens. A lot of cool creature stuff for the Star Wars universe. I really thought I thought it, honestly, like a sidebar on that, I thought it was kind of beautiful and it was cool. And there was I forgot about this. There was a side note I loved about the return to talking about Rey's background with the little girl on the planet that wanted to know her name and also wanted to know her family name, where she basically said, "No, I'm just Rey." Right. But like, I thought it was a pretty beautiful kind of dip back into her lineage. I thought that was a creative way to get back into it. And then to go back and just kind of see everything else that happens thereafter, I thought was like, I don't know. It was a pretty cool way to dip back into that topic.
Yeah, I agree. I guess in the back of my head, though, I'm just kind of disappointed that we even have to dip back into it. Yeah. That The Last Jedi threw out all that stuff, and JJ had to reestablish it, right? He had to be like, no, her lineage is important. By the way, Daisy Ridley recently said in an interview, I guess the original idea was to have Rey being a Kenobi, which I think would have been awesome. That was the initial plan. I would have loved to have seen that movie.
I think it would have been awesome too. I also think it's something that was expected, right? Like that was like a common belief in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the British accent being Force sensitive, you know.
Yeah, and it just would have been cool to see more of the Kenobi line if they were gonna explore any bloodline. I think everybody'd rather see more Kenobis than more Palpatines.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Speaking of Palpatine again, he had sex.
Did he?
I don't know. He has a kid.
They don't address it. Like, I know it's not canon, but there's like you read the Darth Vader comic? I haven't read it, but there's like a written storyline about him using the midichlorians to basically do an immaculate kind of like conception. Yeah. Using midichlorians and using kind of almost a clone of Darth Vader.
Was Jesus a Jedi?
God,
I'd like to believe he was. God, I found a new religion.
I mean, that makes sense. Have you ever read the Book of Job? He's basically Darth Vader.
True that. But you know, on that planet that you're talking about where they're having that like cultural celebration, that's where we get introduced to Lando Calrissian, which I think they did I liked seeing him again. You know, they had him in that kind of like the same getup from Return of the Jedi. Like he kind of had that same helmet on, but it was cool to see him, like, for sure.
It was. I liked him in that scene. I thought it was really fun, him kind of rescuing them out of nowhere. I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty cool, especially with the backstory of him and Luke being on that planet, specifically hunting a Jedi hunter in order to get the Sith Wayfinder. What a badass, like, again, another plot point where I'm like, can I see that fucking movie?
Yeah,
That's
100%.
that's another movie I want to fucking see.
Yeah. 100%. That would be such an incredible movie.
Can we get Childish Gambino in on this?
Yes, I was just thinking that. How perfect would that be? Speaking of, I love Solo. I thought that was a great film.
I did too. It was fun. It was a good time.
I'm down with it. But yeah, it was cool to see Lando again. It really was. And I did like that Lando was the one to say, I have a bad feeling about this in this film.
Right.
More than any other character, because he hadn't said it in any other film. So it was cool to see him say that, because it's said in every movie. Which, by the way, did you know in The Last Jedi, I think BB-8 says it, but in droid.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no human character or speaking character says it,
Boop, boop,
but
boop,
BB-8, yeah.
boop.
I don't even, yeah, it's funny. So, what do you think Finn was going to tell Rey when they were sinking in those sand pits? Remember, he's like, Rey, like, I haven't told you, and then they sink. What do you think he was going to tell her?
Well, I'll have to give you two different answers, because in the moment of watching the movie in theaters, probably that he loves her
Yeah.
is the initial. Now, after a while of watching it, like, and I don't even know where this is coming from. It could be coming from multiple watches. It could be coming from reading theories. It could be coming from listening to podcasts. It's just, I'm a little far separated from it, but like, I think at some point, like, he's just talking about being force sensitive, because eventually you do see that. You do clearly see that. Like, he doesn't hide that. The movie doesn't hide that. Eventually he says certain things where you're just like, oh, okay. All right. So maybe it's not exactly what we thought, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Even, I mean, his ability to even square up and fight with Kylo Ren,
Yeah.
have a lightsaber duel and actually like get a hit in.
Sure. You would hope he's force sensitive at that point, right?
Yeah, otherwise Kylo just sucks, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So then
Yeah.
that scene, right? They slip down. That was pretty cool. Obviously, they're not all dead. The movie's not over, right? So they end up in that cavern. They find the ship. They find the dead Jedi hunter, right? They find everything they need, but they also find a fucking snake.
Yeah, which is pretty terrifying. I thought the special effects were really good.
I liked
But-
it too. Like, all the natural creature stuff they're doing again is just, I think, is fantastic.
What I didn't like, though, was the introduction to Rey's healing ability.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, again, they just kind of throw it at you. Like, there's this giant snake that looks like it's about to eat all of them. She's
Sure.
like, hold on, and then she just like, oh, I'm just gonna transfer some life into him. Like, oh, okay, you can do that now. You know,
Right.
We don't have any like backstory to that. Like, when did
Sure.
you know you could do that, or did you just sense it, or I don't know. I thought that was like a big force move to like heal. Which event, I don't know.
You're not wrong, but I also don't think it's too far off of like what the rest of this trilogy does, which it skips a lot of plot points, a lot of storylines that I would have liked to see.
Yeah.
Like her defeating Kylo in the first movie. Like it out of all that training he had, and she steps in and beats him that quickly. Like, it's a lot of that stuff where you're just like, all right, I can make excuses for it, but at the end of the day, they got there without proving it. Like, they got there without actually showing the work, which is kind of weird and
Interesting.
unfortunate.
I actually like that about
Because I enjoyed it. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that scene. Because I've heard some people joke around about the Rise of Skywalker with like, oh, just like people are just being brought to life the whole time. Like, I thought it was a pretty decent buildup, but I would have liked to see it over time. Like, her healing the snake, that would have been cool to see in The Last Jedi or
right.
something, And then for them to build up to what happens later with Kylo Ren, right?
And speaking of, sorry, this just hit me. When we're talking about Finn being force sensitive, within like that same on the same planet, Rey goes outside because she senses something, right?
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, Chewie, go find her." And then Poe asks Chewie, or Poe asks, like, where's Chewie? And then Finn looks up and he senses something. He goes, it's Ren. Like, he knows it. He can sense that Kylo Ren is there. And that's a clue into him being Force sensitive, which is, I do like. I would have liked to have seen him become a Jedi, really.
For sure. I think it would have been cool, too. I saw him become a Jedi.
Yeah?
Yeah. But it was a Lego movie. It was a Lego Star Wars movie. It was a Christmas special.
Was it better? Was it better than the original Star Wars Christmas special?
Oh, of course. It was better than all Star Wars. You haven't seen that Lego Christmas special? You haven't seen nothing.
I ain't seen nothing yet.
Nah, it's terrible. Don't watch it, but
we have to watch it. We should actually, yeah. Rey's vision that she tells to Finn, you know, when she's like, oh, like,
right,
kind of like, you don't even know the half of it. And she tells him that she had a vision of Kylo sitting on the throne and her neck by his side.
Yeah.
That's another thing I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that vision, you know?
It's like this movie was like just like a series of great Star Wars pitches.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I do think that is because of what happened in The Last Jedi. I think it was just rushed. I think JJ tried to fit a bunch of stuff in. Probably his original plot with something new. He just really tried to squeeze it in there.
Yeah, for sure.
You know who's an awesome character?
Who?
Is Babu Frick.
Babu Frick is an awesome character.
Dude, I want a Babu Frick in my life. I need a Babu Frick in my life.
Why wasn't Babu Frick was kind of like just like a little flicker in the Star Wars universe. He was popular for like a second, but like on like multiple watches, like he's a star, man. I love Babu Frick.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
great.
Man. I love him.
I didn't even like realize until my final watch just a few hours ago that like he speaks English at some point.
Does he?
Yeah, he straight up says what's about to happen to C-3PO, and I hadn't noticed until that last watch.
Oh, interesting.
He kind of mouthed something that says that George's gonna be gone, like he's not gonna. Yeah. And I was like,
get fucked up.
and I was just like, oh, whoa, oh, okay.
Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah. Anybody else like huge Star Wars fans? Like, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're probably a big Star Wars fan, right? Go back and watch it if you haven't noticed, because like it was pretty funny. I was like, oh, I've seen this like. What, this is probably my 5th or 6th time, and I'm like, I just noticed that he's actually speaking in English that last time.
That's funny. Yeah.
To like warn people of like what he's about to do to C-3PO.
Right. She's like, let me be clear in a language you understand.
Right.
Yeah. So during that scene when C-3PO is about to have his memory wiped and he looks at everyone and says he's taking a last look at his friends, it just made me think, like, how aware are droids? Like, what level of emotion do they feel? And what level of self-awareness do they have? It seems to be like a little bit, right?
Yeah, I want to say, if I can go back to Rogue One, that's kind of the film for me that put all of that into context the best, where it really gave you the impression that they had a certain level of self-awareness. And I think in terms of the main plot points of the Skywalker saga, this is the first film, or this is the closest film to that really gave you that same feeling that maybe they are self-aware and they do, they love their masters or their family, whatever they consider them, right? And especially between C-3PO and R2-D2, there's a definite real bond that we can all relate to as humans.
100%. Yeah.
And I'm happy that they gave that to them, that they were able to, I don't know, like, this is the last film in the Skywalker saga. They honored, like, J.J. Abrams found a way to honor the original droids, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, like, the droids have been, like, the most consistent members of all the Star Wars films,
Sure. Yeah,
they
100%.
They were kind of the main characters in A New Hope for at least a good while.
That's totally true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they land on the planet.
They're just walking around in the dirt.
Yeah, until they find Luke. Yeah,
definitely.
I think it's cool. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there's this scene, right? It's where like everyone's going on board Kylo's ship. They're like boarding it to like try to find the Wayfinder or like the blade, right?
Yeah.
And then Poe asks, like, which way? Which way do we go? And then Finn replies, I have no idea. Follow me. And like I was like, is that supposed to be a joke? Either way, it's funny. I have no idea. Follow me. No, are you sure we should? I don't know.
Finn does that, you said, right?
Finn says that.
Finn says that. So yeah, it's awkward. But is that another like, I don't actually know, but follow me, I got it.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
But the delivery is weird. So I don't know, like, maybe it was supposed to be played for comedy, but a part of me feels like the actor played that scene wrong.
Interesting, yeah. But I hadn't thought about that. It could have just been another allusion to him being force sensitive.
I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I also think he played it a little weird. And that's whatever. That's my own judgment on it. I don't think it was bad.
Right.
But maybe that's where that feeling comes from. Because I got a little bit of that too. Like, what? Like, okay. Like, but if you're taking it from the perspective that he's force sensitive and nobody's been able to train him, and so he's just trying to now act on instincts because he hasn't told anybody or hasn't had any training, then it kind of makes sense. And it adds to the comedy if you rewatch it and with that mindset.
Yeah, definitely. What I thought was really cool when they are aboard his ship, when Rey's in Kylo's chambers and they get that force connection again, right? Where their minds are connected and they can see each other.
Yeah.
I really love the way they played with that, and I like the way that JJ made it so those two realities could bleed into one another.
Right, I do too. 100%.
I thought that was brilliant. I loved that a lot.
And there was cause for that. Like, he already gave evidence that was possible, right? Like, there was other things that he did in The Force Awakens that made you think that could be more. We even, like, debated about it. Like, why didn't more happen within that?
In The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi?
Sorry,
right?
The Last Jedi. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi.
Like with the dice.
Yeah.
Or like those things that Han, like he's able to physically hold them.
Right. That's more so what I meant. So it's almost like a, I don't know, like more of him trying to build off of Rian Johnson and be like, let me take what he took away from what I was trying to do and add on to it and just kind of twist it a little bit. There was some fun stuff that he did with that actually became some of my favorite scenes in Star Wars. There were some really, really, really fucking cool things they did with that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even like, they're fighting, right? And with lightsabers. And
Well, the first one was the necklace.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
So the
that
first
was
thing was
awesome.
a necklace. Like, we already kind of talked about the planet. And I know we kind of, like, skipped around on some things. So there's the planet, right? They're there trying to find directions or any kind of evidence of where to find this Sith Wayfinder. They do that, and then they get to the stage where they have to wipe C-3PO. We already talked about that. So C-3PO gave them those instructions of how to find this Wayfinder, right? So, but before that, the only reason they had to escape, the only reason they needed Lando's help is because of that mind meld connection between Kylo Ren and Rey. Because Kylo Ren somehow was able to swipe a necklace and find out where in the galaxy they were and come after them.
Right. Like, hey, we've analyzed this necklace. It comes from this planet. It was a really cool play on that Force vision that Rian Johnson introduced.
Dark Side CSI, you know?
Yeah, man. I love it. And yeah, and the scene again when they show Vader's helmet, and it's what I love is when they're fighting and they knock down the pedestal where Vader's helmet is, and then the helmet actually falls where Kylo is.
I love it.
And he goes, "So that's where you are."
So that's where you are. Like, he's not even angry. He's not upset. He's excited. He's happy.
He is.
I was just like, okay, like he's enticed.
Right.
I love it. Their connection is fucking fantastic.
And then, like, they have some kind of dialogue. I forgot what it was exactly, but then Kylo says, "I'll come tell you." It's like, oh, shit. Here he comes. Like, I know exactly where you are. Yeah, I loved that. Hux being the spy, I thought was cool.
Campy?
Yeah.
Campy? Little little slapstick, little SNL, but I liked it ultimately, I think, but there was a context to it for me that felt like an SNL skit, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Like the whole scene where he like reveals it and asks him to get shot in the leg, that whole thing.
And then immediately gets killed. Like,
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that probably felt that way because it was rushed and should have been stretched out more or, planned out better. I don't know. I'm fine with it. I'm not mad about it, but it did feel weird.
It did feel weird. And there's like a couple things. It's like, okay, so Kylo, you can't sense it that he might be deceiving you, but also the general or whoever shoots Hux and kills him after he finds out he's the spy.
Yeah.
You didn't have any questions for him? Nothing? What did you tell them? What was your plan? Like what was your you don't have no questions. They just killed him. I guess they just tried to show the brute force and like no mercy aspect of the First Order. I don't know.
I mean, I'd imagine so. I like case in point for them is like they got away because of this guy. Like he's dead. Let's find him and let's make sure this guy can't do anything like this again. That part of it, I guess, in my head is fine. It's just like it was so abrupt. Like within 10 minutes or less, he's dead.
Yeah. Probably less, huh?
What is it? Poe said, "I knew it." And it was like, no, you didn't, Finn.
Yeah, Finn. No, you didn't.
Of course you didn't, right? And I thought that was fine, right?
I thought it was funny. Yeah.
I thought it was funny, but like it was too much all at once because then it shifted into like, him. The explanation was fine. I don't care if you win. I just can't have Kylo win. All right, that's fine. That's fair. And now he gets shot. Okay, this is a classic thing we see in a lot of films, right? Like gangster movies, the movies where people are snitching, like shoot me in the leg so they won't know, right? It just stayed campy the whole time. The whole thing just felt like a comedy bit.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it, but it felt a little weird to me.
Yeah, I agree. Shortly after that, we see the scene with Rey and herself, but the Sith self, her Sith self. Can we talk about how good she looks as a Sith? I kind of wish she would have turned just for that purpose.
I kind of dig it.
Yeah. I dig it, man. Even when she snarls. She does that, like, that growl, and then you see those teeth, almost like you do Bilbo Baggins in Lord of the Rings, where he's like, let me just see the ring one more time. And he's like, ah. Yeah. It's kind of like that. But I thought that was cool. It was cool that they fought each other in the vision.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
Speaking of visions, they do end up on the planet after they find the Wayfinder, where the Death Star landed, on one of those moons, right?
Yeah.
And long story short, we see that Force vision between Kylo Ren and his father Han Solo.
Right.
I think that's something that will always stick out to me in the Star Wars universe as one of my favorite scenes. I do have some questions though, but not bad questions. It wasn't that it wasn't explained enough, but I'm just curious. And how did Han Solo return? Was it Leia that used the last of her energy to kind of summon him or to bring him back a little bit, just to, try to get Ben back one last time? Or did, what do you think?
I mean, that's the question. Do you want to talk about the scene that leads to that first? How it gets there?
Sure.
I mean, because there's a lot we could talk about there. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So we already talked about C-3PO, how they got to this area, right? How they found where the Sith Wayfinder would be. So she found it. She got there. She was separated from everybody else. She did it. She endangered her own life to get there early. Anybody who's seen the movie knows how. I don't have to go over it, but so she finds it, and then Kylo Ren shows up and breaks the thing, right? So then they fight, and then you have this classic scene again within this trilogy where you have Finn screaming for Rey. The reason I wanted to go back to this is because if I'm going to be negative about anything, it's always going to be this. I am so tired of hearing that man scream that woman's name. Rey! Rey!
100%. He's a good screamer, though. You
He
gotta
really
give
is.
it to him. He's a
He
really
is.
good screamer.
Yeah,
and
he's got that down.
He's always like out of breath too.
He really is.
You know, but
so anyways, I mean, it's good, you know, and like, again, Rey's just like, man, just kind of get out of here. Force pushes him away, just like, you're gonna die. Stop it, right? Goes off, and honestly, you get a really cool battle scene between her and Kylo Ren, and it really looks like she's about to die. And then Leia, a cutscene with Leia comes in, and you hear Ben. And he stops out of nowhere, right as he's about to strike her down.
yeah,
do you think he would have struck her down if Leia wouldn't have been involved? Because upon like this final watch, it really seemed so.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say because he also wanted her to join him, and since they are a dyad in the Force. I hesitated because we're going to talk about that in a bit, but since they are, I mean, they obviously feel that connection with one another.
Sure.
So it's hard to determine, would he have actually killed her or tried to convert her one last time, try to get her to join one last time. I don't know, but yeah, when Leia puts herself out there, a couple things could have happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, it almost seems also that she inhabited his body for a second. And he felt it. And you brought up a good point, too. Do you think this was the first time Kylo felt the presence of his mother since he thought she passed away? Because they blow up the ship where she's in. Like, as far as he knows, she's dead, right?
Right. As far as we've seen as an audience from The Last Jedi, there's a scene where he goes to kill his mom and he can't do it. He felt her presence, and somebody else beneath him does it for him. And right, so we've talked about Superman Leia, right? She saved herself, but there's no inclination. There's no any evidence that we've never seen evidence that he knows she's still living. So yeah. I kind of almost forgot about that for a second. But yeah, you're right. But in that moment, I don't know. Like, if it was, maybe that was his panic. Maybe that was in the moment, just like, oh. Like, he felt his mom's presence for the first time since then. Of course it's going to cause him pause.
Right. It was just jarring to him, And what's interesting, too, is when Rey stabs Kylo, Leia's body dissolves, like the Jedi's. You see her body covered, and that dissolves, which I thought was interesting. So it's like, did she inhabit him, like, in spirit, in a sense? Or
that's interesting.
I don't know.
That's dark, man. How I took it more so was the first thing you said, which is more so that Leia had used the last bit of who she was, the last bit of her energy, to bring Ben back. And there was a little bit of context to that within the film. Who was it? Maz Kanata?
Mm-hmm.
Beforehand, in that scene, before Leia had laid down, had said something along the lines of that Leia knew she needed to use everything she had left to save her son.
Yeah.
And so that's what it felt like to me, was that everything she had left went into killing Kylo. I mean, that's a more violent way to put it, but in a sense, put enough into herself to bring her son back to life, to save her son.
Right.
And
the Rise of Skywalker, right?
The Rise of Skywalker. Another great conversation piece for the title of the film that I kind of love, that I'm growing to like a lot, that there's so many different beautiful ways you can use that title that doesn't just relate to Luke and Leia. Like, it's just, there's so many ways you could say that are really great.
Yeah, for sure. I think at the end of the day, my final interpretation is that Leia used the last of her energy to somehow bring Han back to talk to Ben. Because as she's laying there, she's holding that medal that Han and Luke received in A New Hope. She's
Right.
like holding it. So when I first saw it, my interpretation was like, okay, she's like holding it and like almost like conjuring or bringing his spirit back.
Okay.
You know, and she needed almost to give her life to give Han life again.
Okay.
Like maybe Han was like that last chance to save
Sure.
Ben.
So this is the first time we've actually kind of directly talked about this, but I kind of like it. So almost that like she's a master Jedi, right? We've already kind of gone through this, that she went through training. She obviously has some experience with the Force, and instead of pushing herself as a Force ghost, she gives herself to her love, to the love of her life, to come and reach out to Kylo to bring Ben back.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. I think that's great. I love that.
I think so too.
I,
Yeah.
because he was a hero, sure, but he wasn't sensitive to the Force. That there was never anything about that. So you would then have to assume that it was either Leia or Kylo himself that brought Han about. And I agree. It makes more sense that Leia used everything she had left to have Han bring Ben back to life.
Right.
And I think that's beautiful. That's awesome.
I do too.
Yeah.
It'll go down. That whole scene will go down as one of my all-time favorite Star Wars scenes.
So
like
sorry, go on.
No, just when you hear Han say, "Hey, kid,"
Yeah.
you just got to kind of get goosebumps. You know, you get
You
that
do.
feeling again.
It's the same hey kid. It's always the same hey kid with him.
Yeah.
And then let's go back to that line, right? Between Han and Leia. Then, as you said, what they were trying to do between Rey and Poe with "I'm Rey, I know," right? Kind of a misuse of the line a bit. And then let's move into the reuse of the line, which is almost another apology, but a beautiful one.
Yeah, it redeemed itself.
Oh God, I loved
Yeah.
it. Which is and let's just like kind of give props. I want to give props all day to Adam Driver because he's such an amazing actor. When you see his face drop and him just say "Dad," right?
And his lips are like trembling. Yeah.
His lips are trembling, and you just see Han look back and say, "I know,"
Yeah.
because he
beautiful.
knows his son loves him.
Yeah. Like deep down. And
Yeah.
that Kylo was not his son.
No,
You know, he was.
he never was.
Right. And yeah, just to see that vulnerability from Kylo Ren. I mean, in that moment where he looks at him and he says, "Dad," that's Ben. That's Ben
Right.
saying "Dad" right there.
Yes.
And it's just really beautiful. And I love the synchronicity between the first film, The Force Awakens, and that scene right there.
Yeah.
Of that dialogue on the bridge. You know, it's almost like what the conversation should have been, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and just the way he tries to convince him to come back, and, you know, all of the repetitive nature of the scene I thought was very beautiful, with him repeating the line, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I have the strength to do so." And he says, "You do," right? And within that conversation, Han also says, you know, like when Kylo says, or Ben, I should say, "It's too late, she's gone," and Han says, "Your mother's gone, but what she stood for, what she fought for, that's not gone."
Yeah.
Love
Beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. That
It
line
is.
is so beautiful. And then he turns and he throws that saber after he's given that strength, after he's given that nod by his dad.
Right. You know,
And-
in The Force Awakens, Kylo kills his dad. And in The Rise of Skywalker, his dad kills Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens, right?
Yeah.
It's that same scene that we
Yeah.
see, but the reverse happens, and he kills Kylo Ren.
Right.
And brings back Ben. Oh, it's
This-
so good.
It's so good. This is the conflict for this film.
Yeah.
Is like it has some of the most beautiful scenes in Star Wars history. It's littered with mistakes, but I still like it a lot.
I enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely.
So where are we from here? So at this point, Rey has now gone on to stab Kylo, experienced Leia's death, and then heal him all in the same scene, right?
Who found what?
Guys, all right, we'll take a pause for a second here. Okay.
Your Apple Watch.
Yeah. Terminator's on its way. Siri is it. We're all dead.
Google was just talking to me too.
We're being listened to.
I didn't even say hey Google, which is supposed to trigger Google listening, right? And be like, yeah. And she just started talking some weird shit. I will post the audio. I will. With some subtitles because it's really off-putting. I don't like it.
All you know who needs to hear is the letter that starts with her name. I can't even say it. It's after R.
Yeah,
before
and she's
T.
like,
don't say it because she'll record everything you're saying.
she's already looking at you in her peripheral if you say guh. She's already recording. She can record all she wants, man. Fucking weirdos.
All right. So we're returning to this, and this is kind of where I was saying I like seeing Rey heal the snake, but
Yeah.
it would have been cool to see it a movie earlier so we wouldn't have it so close to her then saving Kylo's life, or Ben's life, I should say. But it was still beautiful the way she healed him and then said, right, I did want to take your hand. I want Ben's hand. And he was dumbfounded. He didn't say anything. Like I'm sure he was in shock, still recovering from becoming who he is as a person again, Ben Solo rather than Kylo Ren.
Right.
And then she steals his ship. Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Steals the ship and then takes it to Octu.
Yep.
Where Luke passed away, where he died.
Luke passed away, where Luke died.
And that's where we see it. That's where we see the rise of Luke Skywalker. And it's funny because like Rey like tosses Luke's saber, right? And then
into the wreckage of Kylo's ship.
and then he catches it.
What you got there?
What's
that?
This is an exact replica of the saber. I think it's exact, right? But what's kind of bothersome is that I got this from Disney and they called it Rey's lightsaber. It's like, man, it's
Did
Luke's. Yeah. It's Luke's lightsaber. But either way.
It's been passed down, man.
And speaking of lightsabers, let's talk about that a little bit. In The Last Jedi, Rey and Kylo have kind of a force battle for the saber. They're both trying to get it, and it splits in two. And it's broken. It's dead. And then in The Rise of Skywalker, it's whole again. No explanation. The JJ was just like, no, that didn't happen. It's just here again. In my hand.
That's kind of what it seems like.
It was kind of weird, right?
If you've watched like other Star Wars films where they like actually talk about the construction of them, like it seems pretty intense. Like, and where are these Jedi temples that he's going to get it reconstructed if it's broken at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. There's just zero explanation for it.
That's what it seems like.
JJ's just like, no. It's still around.
I can move past it, but it is kind of like all right. Because it is a major plot point for The Rise of Skywalker. So you can't really ignore it. I can be okay with it, but you can't really ignore it.
You can't ignore it. It's weird. And speaking of weird, I think Luke's Force Ghost looked kind of weird. I don't know if it was just me. I thought he looked kind of strange. That's the only commentary I have with that, man. I don't have a strong opinion.
I don't know if he was ready for it. I don't know. I mean, it was good to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was like a degree of like there was some degree that seeing Mark Hamill in that role again was amazing, and I loved seeing it, and I'm so glad it exists, and it was such a great scene. But the first part, again, there was a section of it to me that almost felt like an SNL skit. Like Mark Hamill has stepped into SNL to redo Luke Skywalker to tell Ryan to go fuck himself.
Yeah, right? What's his exact line after he catches the saber?
He catches the saber, and he catches it and he says, what does he say?
I think a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
Yeah.
Rey, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's a clear fuck you to Rian Johnson for
Yeah.
that.
That's what it felt like, for sure.
Lightsaber toss when Rey hands Luke the lightsaber and he just tosses it. That's clearly what that was.
Yeah.
And I loved it because I thought that was out of character for Luke. I mean, I thought Luke was... Anyways, that's a whole different episode that you can listen to. We have 2 episodes you can go back and listen to. But,
True.
yeah, I don't know. After the little pep talk from Luke, she destroyed the ship and because she was going to strand herself on Ock 2 as well.
Right.
And she's like, I don't have a way to get back.
Right.
And so, like, Luke raises the X-Wing from the water, which was cool to see, whatever,
And she pulls the Sith Wayfinder from the wreckage of Kylo's ship.
Yeah. And it's just... One question plagued my mind. That X-Wing needs no repairs? None? It's just good? You can just take off? It's good to go? It's been in the water for how many years?
Well, I guess, like, in my head, what is the technology in these futuristic, crazy sci-fi ships that water damages it and it would need to be fixed? I don't know, but, I mean, did any repairs happen when Luke did it with Yoda?
No, but...
So it's probably fine.
Good point. It's probably fine, but it was a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I don't know
get
much
you.
about the tech within there,
You're
so
right.
I
You're
can
right.
kind of write it off, and
You're
that
right.
I'm fine with. It's
Yeah.
that's kind of another thing where Jada's just like, you know what, like, here you guys go, like,
For
I
sure.
love
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys and I love Star Wars. Like, I think it's another nod and another good nod to tie back in the original franchise in a positive way.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I can't criticize them for doing it if they did it in the originals, and I love the originals. It is what it is. You converted me, my friend. I'm a believer.
So from there, I guess, God, it was good to see Luke again. I wish there was more than that, but, it is what it is.
When throughout the movie, I'm not going to lie, I still was holding on hope that Luke was going to make an appearance still alive.
I know you were.
Like, somehow they were going to bring him back. And then when she went to Ock 2, I'm like, ooh, maybe this is it. Maybe he's still there. And then when he catches it, I was like, fuck, he's blue.
Sure.
I lost all hope, man. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, man, nah, they just killed him.
Yeah,
He's
I get you.
dead.
But I liked the turn, man. It was cool, her getting into that X-Wing. All right, now she's on her way to Exegol, right? And she sends those coordinates back to the Resistance.
Yeah.
And we're headed our way towards the final chapter of the film, right?
Right. Like the showdown, right?
The showdown, yeah. So now we got the Resistance on her way to Exegol. She's obviously going to arrive there first to go after Palpatine. Mm-hmm. And this is where she's finally going to find out her origin story, right? Or at least the one that's written for this film.
Right. Is that where she finds it out? Right there?
I'm sorry. No, at that point she already knew. That's right.
Kylo
that's right.
told her already, right?
Kylo told her
Yeah.
beforehand.
On the ship,
and
or
that
on
was
the
even
Death Star.
And I guess we should have talked about that. That's even a conversation between her and Luke that Leia had actually known and trained her anyways, because as Luke said, Leia saw her heart, saw her spirit, and realized that she was worthwhile for it. So I guess what I really meant was not that she learned of her origins, but that she faced it. Mm-hmm. That she was facing Palpatine, who Grandpa Palpatine. Right?
I don't like the idea of him like boning and having a kid.
Pappy Palp.
Oh, we went over that. Maybe he Pappy Palp.
Yeah, we're just going to assume it was immaculate conception. This
We
was
have
not,
to.
He
I
didn't
can't
have
get
sex.
that image in my
I'm in IT, and I have a coworker who like specifically made this distinction where he was like, "Yeah, Anakin. Yeah, okay, I could see him fucking. Nobody wants to see Palpatine have sex. Nobody wants to picture that.
No.
He had sex. Nobody wants to imagine that happen. So I don't.
Yeah, let's not.
No.
And I'm sorry if we put that in your head now.
I am.
But yeah, I mean, the final showdown where Rey goes to Exegol, she sent, like you said, sends the coordinates to the rest of the Resistance. Ben's on his way to Exegol as well. What is really cool is that after the interaction with her and the Emperor, right, where he's trying to convince her to kill him so that his spirit can inhabit her, that whole thing, which was like actually pretty cool with the Sith and like them chanting. It was pretty eerie. I did like that, but again, I want more story. Who are these people? You know, like, are they Sith Jedi too? Are they just fans?
So my assumption, and I don't know, it was very Harry Potter-esque to me. Yeah. The darkness of this scene, like this Horcrux of like these spirits and everything inside of him or whatever, like, and with him saying like, you kill me and we become one and you will be the Empress, right? So I just imagine all of them are past Sith Lords. So this has been going on for a long time. We know we don't have context besides the Skywalker trilogy. Mm-hmm. So it's a little weird because all of those Sith Lords make it seem like this has been going on for eons, right?
Yeah. I mean, those big stone structures, the carvings, right? The statues of the Sith. Like, this is ancient.
Right, and they do kind of put that out there, but then when you actually they do that earlier than this film, right? But when you actually see everybody, like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, in the stands, in the stadium seats,
yeah,
in the stadium.
Did you notice they weren't
Sith
social
Lords,
distancing?
They weren't, but also they were already dead, so I guess that's fine.
Were they? Was that what it was? They were spirits. They were dead.
Yeah, in my head, what I believed them to be was all the past Sith Lords that were going to become a part of Rey if Rey killed him in the way that he wanted her to.
That's cool. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah. I like that. So, it makes me like that scene more.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. So, yeah, I mean, in that context, like, it was weird. Again, I don't hate it. I just want more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's like what goes on throughout the whole movie. Like you said, it's just like a series of awesome Star Wars pitches.
Right.
That we don't have the full story to. Just mentions, you know. It's little snippets, little pinches. But shortly after that, we see, you know, Rey agrees to do it.
Right.
And then feels Ben. Right? Feels that he's there, or they have that Force connection again. And I love, again, how they utilize that Force connection to pass the lightsaber.
Oh, my God.
It's so good.
Again, one of my favorite scenes in this franchise's history. It was so much fun to see.
Yeah.
These two, honestly, in terms of combat scenes, they probably hold my two favorite scenes, which is this one and the one they shared in The Last Jedi. It's so
when
good.
They're fighting the guards,
right?
Or like the royal,
right.
That's a good scene for sure.
And they have great chemistry together with this. But anyways, going on.
I don't know if, for me though. Side note, I don't know if it beats the duel of the fates, man. Of Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Okay, I'll give you that.
That's up there. That's up there for me. But yeah, it's awesome to see her pass that lightsaber to Ben, and because like there's like an acknowledgement, right? She like asks him without verbally asking him, like, are you here as a good guy or a bad guy?
Yeah.
Like, is this Ben, you know?
Sure.
And he like nods, you know, kind of just like I'm here for you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to do what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a really cool scene. And again, we see the Knights of Ren, but not really. Like, we don't really see much of them.
Yeah, again, that's kind of like the coolest scene you get from the Knights of Ren is him facing them. And if I can, just for a second, his entrance into this scene, I want to mention for a second, because I had a couple friends that are Star Wars fans kind of were bothered by his entrance into it, because he kind of like jumps into the ship, right, to wherever he was going. And he kind of has this moment where he lands, he catches, and he goes, oh, and he says like, ow, or something.
Yeah.
Right. I liked it. And the reason I liked it is because Han Solo had this aspect of badassery to him that also was very comedic and campy, where like he was kind of sloppy and he was badass, but he also like made mistakes and he made it funny.
Yeah.
And I felt like the death of Kylo Ren gave that personality back to him.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And when you see him fight, his fighting stance almost changes. Like, I don't know if I'm making this up. I don't know if this is a mental thing just because I love that transition into Ben, but I really feel like they made some sort of a change in the way Ben Solo fights versus Kylo, that it was a little bit more gunslinger. And it was fun to watch that transition. It was really, really fun. And so I liked it because I feel like it was character building. It was character development. It wasn't supposed to be just for a laugh. It was supposed to point out that he's not the same character anymore.
For sure. Yeah. Because prior to that, you don't see any kind of comedic human side of Kylo Ren.
Not beyond his temper tantrums that were hilarious, you know?
They were hilarious.
Yeah.
So the Sith ritual is really cool, but yeah, that whole scene's cool. And then he finally joins her, and then Palpatine realizes that they are a dyad in the Force. Right? And he starts absorbing the energy from them. And I would have liked, again, to have gone back, have Palpatine been a character introduced in The Force Awakens, and have, like, that dyad being a crucial striving for the Emperor. Like, he needs them to regain himself again. Like, it would have been cool to have that plot throughout the trilogy. But again, I mean, I think some of these were last-minute decisions.
I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
The fact that it was a surprise to him that they were a dyad in the Force, I think is... I mean, it almost feels like J.J. Abrams is admitting it to us. Because they play with the whole Snoke thing in The Last Jedi of Snoke saying that he was a part of putting their minds together, right? Mm-hmm. With all the power Palpatine has, if the whole plan was that Palpatine had made Snoke and was controlling Snoke, really with all of that power and putting their minds together, he wouldn't have known they were a dyad? I don't know. It just seems a little far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
But,
100%.
You know,
yeah, that's true. And they don't really explain too. I mean, because if it's Snoke doing it, I mean, it's still happening.
Right.
I don't know. So it's like those plot holes that just like they do get under my skin, but
and it's also like the beginning of the film makes it seem like the beginning versus the end when Palpatine has Rey in front of him makes it seem like he was playing both sides. So he had two apprentices and he didn't know which one was really going to pan out. So let's just play both odds, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, he realizes they're a dyad and fuck this. Now I'm going to bring myself back to life.
Yeah.
It's a little sloppy. I don't...
No. I feel you. It was like last minute. He was like, oh shit, you guys are a dyad?
Like, hey.
Lucky me.
It's like he's Rodney Dangerfield. Hey.
Yeah.
Take what I can get.
Yeah.
I just like, I don't know. Like, I like it. Again, it's another thing that's like almost like they couldn't make up their mind or like, I don't know. It was still fun to see. And I've seen the movie several times and I love it. It just feels like it was just kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And they had a few different puzzles, and they looked similar, but they weren't the same puzzle, and they tried to fit them together.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
and you get a unique puzzle after that.
You do.
And I do parts of beauty.
And I have to mention too, we kind of talked in The Last Jedi that there was some overlap in the tone of Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers as a whole, with what they were doing with The Last Jedi, right? Because everything's under that umbrella of Disney. There were a few moments during this film I felt that as well.
Okay.
And I don't hate it. I'm not mad about it. Even The Mandalorian, which we'll talk about in the future, has done this a couple times for me. But within the context of this film, it happened twice for me. The first time was when Poe thinks he's done, right? When he's upset, when he says, I'm sorry, I thought we could do this. There's too many of them, right? And then out of nowhere, Lando. Okay, it reminds me a lot of Steve Rogers' Captain America sitting in front of that army right before all those portals started opening.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Okay.
So another scene for that is now when Kylo Ren and Rey are facing Palpatine, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want to take over from here, because I know you liked talking about that concept of the Rise of Skywalker and what happens, right? Between Ben Solo and Palpatine getting rid of the last quote-unquote Skywalker.
Right.
Is just...
Sorry.
That's okay.
Was that my cue? Was it?
The Force push.
Yeah. Okay, I felt it. I was like, Chris. But I really wish that Ben Solo was part of that battle more so than he was.
Yeah, he gets pushed out pretty quick.
Really quick.
But it was a good line. It was good writing, I thought. What did he say again? He said Palpatine said something along the lines of something as, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, and just so as I fell, so does fall the last Skywalker.
Ooh, yeah. Beautiful. Poetry.
Great line. I loved
great line.
It was really, really great.
Right.
And so now we're going to get to the point where Rey is about to die, right?
Yeah.
And she grabs Luke's saber back from Kylo.
One? This one?
That one. That exact one. Yeah. Did you fix it again or what?
Yeah, man.
So she pulls the saber back and she gets out both and she crosses sabers, right? But before she does that, the reason she builds up to that is, what does Palpatine say? And he says that I am all the Sith. Mm-hmm. And she crosses swords and says, I am all the Jedi.
Right.
Right before she kills his ass.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to Endgame.
Oh, no.
I am inevitable. I am Iron Man.
Oh, my God. Why are you putting that in my head? Now I can't separate it.
I can't disconnect the two. I can't. I haven't been able to for a while. I like it. I think it's done well. And I mean, it's almost like if you take like two different songs, like if you take a song, you copy it and put it in a different genre. Because it is played differently. Mm-hmm. The words are obviously different, but I do think it was kind of copied.
It feels like it. Now that you say it. I didn't think about it before. Let's just end it here, man. Whatever, I'm done. At the end of the day, I mean, it is pretty cool to see or to hear all the Force ghosts talking to Rey.
I agree.
And it also like introduces kind of a new power in the Force too, or a new aspect to the power of the Force.
Oh, I love it. I mean, and they integrate the animated series as well, which I thought was great.
With the voices, right?
Yeah, there's voices from the animated series in the Jedi that even the diehard Star Wars fans from the 70s who haven't dipped into the animated series haven't heard those characters before. But it's kind of like a beautiful way to connect all these generations of Star Wars fans.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. Because you hear Qui-Gon, you hear Obi-Wan.
Right.
You hear, like you said, those characters from the
I think
animated
both
series.
Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
Both the original as well as Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, young and old. Yeah, it was really awesome. Which leads us to Reylo. I want you to talk about that. We have a disagreement here.
Do we? Okay, so I'm not sure if your disagreement is as bad as some of my other Star Wars friends, because I don't know. Am I just a romantic? Is this it? I don't think it's bad. I feel like there is a stigma on romance sometimes because it's been so overplayed that when it's done right to me, like, or when I feel like it's been done right, I love it because I love the romance in it. Because they don't do it that much. It's not overkill for the most part. But yeah, so The Rise of Skywalker, right? So here's another moment we could talk about the Rise of Skywalker. Is like Ben
was
Solo's
it
not
about
dead.
Ben Solo's boner?
No.
Is that the Rise of Skywalker?
No, man.
That's it. The Rise of Skycocker.
Oh,
God,
Jesus. He got force pushed right off the edge. You know, we thought he was gone. I mean, nobody really thought he was gone.
No
but he
one's ever
climbed
really
up.
gone.
Very nice. So he climbs back up, and he finds Rey. I should mention at this point, Rey has collapsed from the effort of killing Palpatine, or I should say expelling Palpatine, whatever you want to say, right? So now he climbs up to Rey. He puts her into his arms. He's obviously tremendously upset that she's dead. And he has a moment of recognition of what he has to do. Mm-hmm. And again, another moment where I love Adam Driver. He's so good. His face acting, everything about him is good to me.
He's brilliant. I love Adam
He's brilliant.
Driver.
He's so great. Yeah. And he does the final moment of like, you know, putting his life energy into another person and brings her back to life. And in another great moment for me of acting, Daisy Ridley as Rey looks over at him, and at first coming out of it is frightened, right? Because at first she sees Kylo, which makes sense. You know, she comes to and she sees Kylo. It makes sense. But she has a moment of recognition and realizes that's not Kylo, that's Ben. And she smiles. And she says Ben's name and she kisses him. And I've heard a lot of complaints about this kiss, but I thought it was beautiful. And I don't think I would have liked it as much if it wasn't followed by Ben smiling, appreciating the moment of freedom and becoming himself again, and then immediately passing away. I think that's what made it a beautiful moment in Star Wars history. But I understand a lot of people did not want that romantic moment, but I honestly loved it. Well, what do you think, though?
I liked everything up to the kiss, to be honest with you. I liked the recognition of, like, Ben when she realizes it is Ben, and he, like, looks at her like, yeah, like, it's me, you know, Kylo's dead. But I would have much rather seen, like, a deep embrace.
Okay.
Of one another, like a deep embrace, because like they do recognize that dyad. They've known they've had this connection. They've felt this connection. I just never got the impression that whole time throughout the series that it was a romantic connection. I thought, I wouldn't have thought Rey's first instinct would be to kiss him, but more of an embrace of like a. Because I feel like a hug can do more than a kiss, you know? A kiss is pretty romantic. Friends can hug when you care about someone, but, like, friends generally don't kiss on the lips, you know? It's a different thing. Like, kissing is generally only romantic, unless it's on the cheek. So
have you seen The Last Jedi? Did you see Adam Driver pop that shirt off?
That was pretty sexy. Very awkward, too. He's big.
Yeah, he's buff, man.
He's a massive... like, not only buff, but he's just, like... big. He's wide.
It was unexpected.
It's a massive flesh.
Nah, I get what you mean, and I could go both ways with it, but I liked it. I didn't think it was over the top. It helped me that he died. Like, I thought it was a beautiful moment. Like, I get it. It could go either way, but I mean, you didn't hate it necessarily.
I didn't hate it.
Right.
Certainly didn't love it. You know, I think probably what bothered me a little bit too was that a lot of people in the online community, Star Wars community, were talking about Reylo. You know, like, between them two. And I always thought it was just kind of weird. I was like, nah.
I'm honestly upset you brought it up because this is the first time I've heard it.
Reylo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
So what do you prefer now, an embrace or kiss?
Dude, I like
Reylo.
the kiss.
Reylo. Yeah?
I like the kiss.
Reylo.
I thought it was beautiful.
Reylo. Yeah. I'm just messing.
No, I thought it was a great moment. I really did.
Yeah, it was good. It was good overall. Fine.
But, you're not as intense as some of my other nerdy Star Wars friends that are like super hateful of the moment. I think it was great. And to me, to a point, it's just like, when is the romance good and like gonna be okay? Like I thought it was fine. There's not a whole lot of good romantic moments in Star Wars history.
Right.
I honestly think this is one of the better ones.
And talk about romantic moments that aren't good. How about Attack of the Clones? Every freaking scene between Anakin and Padme is creepy. The dialogue, the acting, I hate all of it. All of it. It's so cringy.
Yeah,
bad.
Was it Mary Kay Letourneau? Do you remember that story?
No.
That was like the first famous story of like a teacher having sexual relations with a student, and that's the vibes it gave me. I know, like,
where's this going?
Sorry about that, but I mean, like, I'm bringing it up because those are the vibes that movie gives me. It was like, oh, Anakin,
Yeah.
my, how you've grown strong.
Right.
All
yeah.
right, Natalie, calm down, okay? He was just a toddler.
Yeah,
He was just a little pod racer. Like, that was like in the Star Wars universe, pod racing is like go-kart racing, and you were his babysitter, you sick motherfucker. It's not her fault. I shouldn't blame Natalie Portman.
No, it's not Natalie's fault. It's George Lucas, really, that sick fuck.
Okay, can we get there again? Because he's got, you know what? I'm not going to go over it. He's clearly got some preferences in his personal life we're not going to go over, right?
Oh, I don't know. Enlighten me.
No, I mean based off of his writing efforts in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, right. But
moving on.
That's a different podcast.
I don't know what it's called, but it's certainly not called The Balance.
No, it's not. That's
so I liked it. I liked the moment. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was a beautiful moment. Even with those two scenes I mentioned with Poe and then Rey, that reminded me of the Avengers and that kind of vibe. It was still great. I thought they played it well. They did it well. It was filmed well. It was a beautiful scene. Before he died, Palpatine shooting lightning up into the sky and almost destroying the entire Resistance was badass.
That was pretty cool.
It looked so cool. Like, it was like,
cool.
God, no, you don't want to let that happen, but it was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. And also, it was really fun to watch Lando bringing that fleet in. So many ships.
For sure.
So many.
Yeah.
Right? Resistance assemble.
Very nicely played. Yes. Resistance assemble.
At one point in the film, I forgot who mentions it, but they mentioned that the Final Order fleet of ships were conjured. Like almost like not built, but conjured. That's like a direct line. I thought that was an interesting concept. Like, what do you mean conjured?
Yeah. I think I missed that. That's interesting. But there's a lot of like weird spiritual aspects to this that we really didn't dive into as much in previous films, right?
Yeah.
Like with all the previous versions of Sith Lords being in Palpatine.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I said this in the previous podcast on The Last Jedi, but I would love to see a Quentin Tarantino Star Wars.
I would too.
Solely, I mean, because his focus on dialogue is so in depth that I feel like he'd really be able to expand and dive into the Force and what it's about and like the inner workings of it. That'd be really cool. Anyways, that's just a side note. Overall, what am I rating the Rise of Skywalker? I'm
curious because I have a rating. We have a rating like recorded for you for The Last Jedi, so I'm curious where you are with this one.
I don't even remember what it was, but
I know what it is.
Rise of Skywalker, I'm going to give 6 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
I don't know where I'm going with this. 6.2?
6.2. We'll give it a 6.2.
You have The Last Jedi higher.
I do?
Yes, you do.
What do I have it at?
6.5.
6.5. Interesting. Well, The Last Jedi has somewhat grown on me. Yeah, I'll stick to it.
Okay.
No, let's flip them. 6.5 and 6.2. Last Jedi, you're now 6.2.
Wow,
yeah.
You're going to degrade it?
Yeah, a little bit, because, The Rise of Skywalker had some of my favorite Star Wars scenes. Last Jedi didn't really. I did like a lot of the scenes, but...
Yeah.
Let's flip it.
I'm going to give my level of enjoyment for The Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to give it an 8.
Ooh. That's enjoyment, though. Give me what you think about it as a film and a final installment in the sequel trilogy.
As a film, a final installment into the trilogy. Honestly, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to give it an 8 because there is some, in terms of execution, there's some things I would have liked to see differently. But where we got to, in terms of the characters we were given in The Force Awakens, I thought it was awesome.
Okay. Okay. And now what do you give The Last Jedi?
Last Jedi, I gave a 7.
Okay, so 7, 8. What do you give The Force Awakens?
The Force Awakens? Yeah, okay, so The Force Awakens is difficult for me because I think it's a near perfect movie for Star Wars.
I really do.
I honestly, like, I give it a 9. I give it a 9, but I also, like, there's not much creativity in it.
Yeah, that's the only downfall to that movie. And actually what I was thinking with The Rise of Skywalker, I do like the idea of that Final Order fleet, each having a planet-killing weapon. And I think that would have played out better as something that they had to go against in The Force Awakens rather than another Death Star. I think like a fleet of Star Destroyers that have planet-killing weapons would have been cool, new, and equally threatening, if not more.
Sure.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I give The Force Awakens probably like, and because of those reasons, because of the repetitiveness of the story, probably like an 8.5. I really like it. I love it. I think they did Han justice, giving him that film. Like, he was in it just the right amount. It was beautiful. I loved it.
I agree.
8.5, 6.2, and 6.5.
So I guess I'm going 9, 7, 8.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, those scores are somewhat balanced.
I sound pretty salty for, like, some of the comments I've made. I sound pretty salty for somebody who rates these movies that highly.
Very high. Yeah. Well, I think that just shows, like, you can criticize something and see the faults in it, but still enjoy it.
Right.
Same
I guess,
like within people too, right?
Right. I guess that's my own personal balance, right? Is that I can criticize all these things, but at the same time, the things I love about them just outweigh the negatives at the end of the day.
Right. For sure. Well, that being said, we're going to wrap this up. This has been our discussion on The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
We hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed talking about it. Tune in next time. We'll be doing these regularly. Christmas
I think
is coming
the next
up.
one was going to be on Christmas, right? We're going to be doing Christmas movies?
We're going to be doing Christmas movies.
Christmas
So look forward
movies.
to that. Look forward to that. Also, if you're watching this, in the comment section, write down your favorite Christmas movie. Give us some input.
Yeah, and let us know what
know.
you think about any of the Star Wars movies. Agree with us, disagree with us. You want to talk shit? That's fine. Let us know.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's keep talking about it. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace.
Later. Whoop.
Take one.
Leia, I got everything you needed to build the lightsaber. I got...
Take two.
Hey, Leia, I got everything you needed to repair the lightsaber.
Take three.
Hey, Leia, I got everything you needed to rebuild the lightsaber. I didn't mean to do that.
Take 4. Or was that in 3? Take 4.
Hey, Leia, I got everything you needed to rebuild the lightsaber.
Leia, I got everything to fix the light.
Glue stick, got